A long time ago, in the distant past of October, I made a video on Alan Wake, a psychological horror game about an insufferable writer with main character syndrome. Well, I must have really enjoyed my vacation to Bright Falls, cause here we are again, diving right back into the Remedy cinematic universe to ask myself, can I plot Alan Wake 2? We begin our story taking control of an old naked man wandering through the woods. He is soon ambushed and brutally attacked and sacrificed by an unknown group of people, all wearing deer masks. We pop our first trophy here as well, hunting season, for completing this very short intro. This all brings in our main character, Saga Anderson, an FBI agent brought in by her partner Casey to investigate this string of sacrificial cult-like murders. We arrive at Cauldron Lake, the site of last night's grisly murder, and pick up our next trophy, or rather we pick up our first map of the area, which pops our next trophy, Nightmare Territory. We meet up with the local deputies and start to investigate the corpse and the crime scene, during which we make a quick detour to find our first locked box stash of supplies, left dotted around the area by the cult. We'll be keeping an eye out for the rest of these, but for unlocking our first, we pop secret stashes. We start to piece together clues we find at the crime scene in our mind place, a unique gift that Saga has in which she can enter her own mind to view various collectibles, upgrade our weapons, but mainly we use it for the aforementioned clue board. We learn that the victim was Agent Nightingale, the crazed douchebag FBI agent from the first game. We follow the footprints, presumably made by Nightingale, to a dead end inside of a giant tree. Things get even odder where we find a manuscript page depicting this very scene that our detectives find themselves in, popping our next trophy, not the last. We head into town to meet the sheriff, Tim Breaker, and speak with a couple of witnesses to the murder. Here we get the name of the Cult of the Tree, an urban legend around Bright Falls to keep people out of the woods. We also have a run-in with Alan's #1 fan, Rose, the sweet but crazed fan from the first game who seems to recognise Saga, full name and all. And even more disturbing is that she gives us her condolences on the loss of our daughter, Logan, who we just spoke to on the phone. We brush this off as a crazy encounter with a local and move on to the police station to operate on our victim in the morgue. Whilst investigating, we find another piece of the manuscript inside the corpse, and this unleashes all hell. Breaker recognises the pages as the manuscript Alan Wake wrote back in 2010 and then suddenly disappears, whilst Nightingale rises and attacks everyone in the morgue. We survive by hiding in the light and sneaking to our gun, a few bullets in the zombie Nightingale though when he vanishes, ending the chapter and popping somebody's home. We catch our breath with Casey after our encounter with the living dead and find another manuscript, letting us know that we will find ourselves and our monster back at Cauldron Lake. Before heading out though, I make a quick upgrade to my pistol, popping the Growing Stronger trophy. We return to the lake to start looking for clues. The page mentioned that we could find Nightingale in an overlap, a place that is in between the real world and the dark place. We start following the clues left in the manuscript pages we find in the area, which soon leads us to restoring a generator to a small cabin, creating our first safe room and popping our next trophy, Coffee Thermos. We also find our last clue to the case in here, in a manuscript. We need to perform a ritual to get into the overlap. This ritual needs us to find Nightingale's missing heart, which we track down to the local general store. Here we encounter our first actual fight with the Taken and earn 2 trophies in doing so. Darkness Coiled for destroying a dark shield protecting the Taken, and Chase the Source for destroying a weak spot on the possessed. After that scrap, we got a next trophy as well for healing for the first time, popping the Felt Good trophy. And that's not all, as inside the general store we find our first inventory upgrade, earning the Grew Bigger trophy, which comes immediately in handy as right next to that is a cabinet case we unlock to pick up our nice new sawn off shotgun, popping the Bring It trophy. We also find the heart, letting us now perform the ritual to get into the overlap. Inside, we find Nightingale again and have one final standoff with him. Now, I'm not gonna lie, he puts through our paces in this fight. We may have the shotgun, but we barely have any ammo, so we mostly had to rely on headshots and fleeing, which isn't easy in this looping, claustrophobic forest. We finally managed to put him down for good, popping the Lone Man trophy for doing so. Afterwards, we come to back in the real world, to find Alan himself dishevelled and ranting, but now out of the dark place after 13 long years, ending the chapter there and popping our next trophy into the overlap. We leave Wake for the time being in the capable hands of Casey, as it seems that after beating Nightingale in the overlap, once flooded areas around Cauldron Lake are now clear for exploration and collectible hunting. So we do just that. During our finds, we pop our next trophy for popping enough heads. We get the Aimed Ahead trophy. We head back to Bright Falls with Wake to ask a few questions, and here we swap to Alan's side of the story to fill us in on what he's been doing inside the dark place. We first awaken a talk show hosted by one Mr. Dorr. It goes about as awkwardly as you'd imagine, as Dorr starts asking Alan about his new book, another new book he has no recollection of writing, one that, ironically, is about Alan himself, not remembering a book he had wrote, who has to follow the clues and stop his evil doppelganger. Very meta, and very much foreshadowing what we will be doing throughout Alan's side of his playthrough. After the interview, we find ourselves alone, walking through the empty studios before we are soon attacked by an unseen force. We find ourselves in our version of Saga's Mind Place, a writer's room, in which we can rewrite areas and scenes to change events and environments. We awaken again back at the interview, and after having another awkward interview, we find ourselves alone again. Things are slightly different this time, however, and after using Dumbledore's lighter to solve a few light puzzles, we escape the studio and pop our next trophy for beating the chapter Talk Show. Outside, we find a ringing payphone and answer it to a mysterious person who for the time being seems to be helping us. He tells us to head to the subway station, and with no other leads, we oblige. Now this place is a nightmare to navigate. It's confusing, it's looping, and it's full of light puzzles and restricted areas. We soon spot a light at the end of an alleyway and start to follow it, to then run into Casey, but not the Casey we already know, another one. This is going to get a little bit confusing, but bear with me here. Alan wrote a series of books back in the day about a Max Payne-esque road detective called Alex Casey. This is that fictional version of Casey, although, to make this a little bit more confusing, this fictional Casey seems to be enacting a case from his series about a murder cult that was sacrificing people at the will of their Grand Master to appease some deity that had already written their destiny, a case that also bled into the real world as a copycat cult started to recreate these killings in New York, a case that the real Casey was on, and one that he suspected that Alan Wake was behind, a theory that this fictional Casey also seems to have. See, it can all get a little bit confusing. Before Casey and Alan can really talk though, they are interrupted by a noise. He goes to investigate but is killed. We loot the body, getting us back our trusty flashlight and revolver and pop in the Find the Light trophy. Just next to this body is another light puzzle that ends with us finding a Word of Power, Alan's version of upgrades. This first one pops the Words of Power trophy. Alan makes it to the subway and we start making it deeper in via the tunnels, all the while finding more echoes of Casey on the case of our second murder cult, the Cult of the Word. And it seems that the Dark Presence itself doesn't like the progress we've been making, as it turns up to give chase. Nothing to worry about, however, as a single 50-watt bulb lighting a small break room is enough to scare it away. We then pop Stormcloud for having our very first chase with the entity. We then find out what the Presence was protecting, as we find the murder site of Nightingale, showing that we also have some form of connection to the overlap that Saga found herself in, ending the chapter there and popping New York City. We make it back to the street to find that some changes have been made since finding that murder site, the biggest one being that our New York apartment has disappeared. Curious and worried that Alice might now be involved, we investigate to find that things haven't been going very well for her. The apartment has been taken over entirely by Alice's work, and as we make our way through, we piece together that Scratch, our evil doppelganger, has been haunting Alice, tormenting her. All the motion sensors and cameras around the apartment are to go off and capture Scratch on camera to prove that he exists and that she isn't going crazy. We then find ourselves in some sort of loop. One in the writer's room where we are both an Alan walking into the room and a dead Alan sat in the writer's chair after finishing another manuscript called Return. We are then attacked by an unseen force, ending the chapter and popping the Return trophy. We also pop the Other Side trophy for switching back to Saga. Alan has now filled Saga in on everything and says that he needs to get his hands on the clicker to fix all of this. He is also pretty sure that the cult has this. This is confirmed when reading a manuscript page he had been holding on to, letting us know that we follow the cult to Watery to track the clicker down. We leave Alan with Casey and head on out. Arriving in town, we start by asking some locals a couple of questions, but we are soon recognised by Yelmo and Yakko, brothers and local celebrities around these parts who, much like Rose, not only seem to know Saga, but remember that she used to live here in Watery and that our daughter drowned. Knowing that we have to investigate the trailer park anyway, we play along and ask for the keys to our supposed trailer home. Good news, there's a spare set at the brothers' local theme park, Coffee World. On our way, we solve a quick puzzle and earn another charm, yet another collectible we've been picking up along the way. For equipping the charm and filling up our bracelet, we earn Filling the Shape. Further along, we come across another cult stash, and instead of finding some regular supplies in there, we find a crossbow, earning me the Greatest Hits trophy. Another quick trophy earned on our way to the Coffee World, as we've been finding nursery rhyme puzzles scattered throughout the game, and for solving our fifth one, we earn Strange Reality. We finally reach Coffeeland, and it is a mess here. It looks abandoned and run down, but we still need to get that spare key, so we start exploring, looking for a way to get into the gift shop. During so, we take aim and fire at one of the many horrific looking Coffee World mascot cutouts, earning us the coffee themed fun trophy. We also have a scrap with a couple of taken on the teacups, and for taking aim and putting one down with a single clean shot to the head, I pop in one go. After that fight, we also find a very handy screwdriver, perfect for busting open some locks and also perfect for popping our next trophy, Finding a Way. On the way back to the gift shop, we encounter another small group of Taken and pop our next two trophies, Escape Its Gravity for using a flare to escape a grapple, and Shining in the Night for the flare keeping a Taken at bay. We get inside the gift shop, pop open the safe to grab my trailer keys, and beeline it for the trailer park to get back onto the trail of the cult. Here is where we run into another classic duo from the first game, Tor and Odin, who not only recognise us, like some of the other locals in town, but take it one step further by claiming that they are family, Grandfather Tor and Granduncle Odin. We pay no mind to them for now and carry on looking around, soon enough finding our home, which is filled with letters and pictures showing that we did indeed once live there and have a life here. We also find a pic of our new family being chummy with a cult member who is wearing a biker jacket from a local workshop that Yelmo and Yakko owns. We lastly find a newspaper depicting the death of our daughter. The story Wake or Scratch had been writing is now affecting Saga's life. The story is now coming true and changing her history. As Saga panics, trying to call her husband and daughter, we find one of the local deputies from the beginning of the game waiting for us, and wearing a deer mask. He leads us to the bike workshop, where we find the clicker, but before we can get it, the taken forms of the two deputies take it into another overlap. So now we need to find another ritual to perform to enter this new overlap, and the parade float outside seems to be the answer. So we round up a few missing items to complete the float and enter this new overlap. Inside is another weird and confusing and looping world, and waiting for us at the end is a boss fight with the two deputies, and for beating both of them we earn our next trophy, Bright Falls Finest, and even managed to earn another trophy, Gone for Good, for taking out one of the deputies with an explosive. We emerge from the overlap, clicker now in hand to end our chapter, earning back in Watery. Now back with Wake and Casey, the lodge is attacked by the cult members who want Alan. Alan, sensing Scratch, warns Casey not to go out there to fight, but he doesn't listen, so we have to give chase. As we near Casey, we sense the presence of Scratch again, who we see attack Casey. We collapse, and is about to be ritually sacrificed by a cult member, but are saved last minute by Saga, who disarms the member, revealing him to be Elmo. He says that we don't understand, but before going any deeper, is ambushed by the FBC, who players of another Remedy title might recognise. The FBC is now taking control of the case. They tell Saga to go home and take Elmo and Wake into custody, ending the chapter and popping We Watch the Night. Tor and Odin are our only remaining leads now. They seem to know about what is going on and may be able to help us with the clicker. As Saga is thinking this, Tor calls us, seemingly knowing that we are coming to visit. He is interrupted though and attacked by something, giving us even more reason to visit. Before heading there, I decided to check off a few trophies however, the first being a real easy one. You see, one of the charms we find is a coffee charm. This brings us back to life upon death with full health, but breaking the charm afterwards, making it a one-time use. And for doing this, we earn back to life. Next we earn what I consider to be the hardest trophy in the game. There's a dodge mechanic in this game, and if you time that dodge at just the right moment of an enemy's attack, it will make them fall over and be open to a barrage of bullets. But this timing is so strict. It says to dodge at the very last moment of an attack, but what it actually means is the very last millisecond of an attack. After getting this trophy on a pack of wolves, I think I only managed to accidentally do this again one more time throughout the rest of my playthrough. Anyway, I got it in the end, popping This Is the Moment. I then fully upgraded one of my guns, earning All Smiles, and back to the story now, as we arrive at the retirement home to find Rose working a late shift there, and acting a bit shifty herself. We still manage to blag our ways inside, asking to visit some of the other old folk, but when talking with them, it becomes very clear that Tor and Odin are hurt and in danger. We sneak upstairs to find Odin in a hospital bed, mute and in a bad way. He reaches out to us inside our mind place, where we learn that we can communicate in there. He explains that this is a power that all Andersons possess, and warns us that the darkness is here for them, and that they are too old and weak to keep fighting it off as well as they used to, especially Tor, who may have already succumbed to it. He also warns us that Cynthia Weaver might be behind this, the nice old lamp lady from the first game. We return to Rose and call her out on all her lies. She agrees to let us go into the wellness centre to see Tor, but inside, the place is abandoned and dark, and our fear about Tor is soon confirmed, as we find him staggering around, clearly possessed. We piece together that Cynthia has been taken over by the darkness, and Tor had developed a bit of a crush on her, so the possessed Cynthia had took advantage of old Tor's simping and lured him over to the dark side. While solving some puzzles to unlock the facility, we earn our next trophy for finding and picking up the hunting rifle. We pop ready for a fight, and we sure as hell need to be, as heading back outside we find Tor being taken into an overlap, meaning that we need to find and perform another ritual to go in after him. We speak with Odin, and he lets us know that it's a record Tor recorded to apologise to Saga and the family that we need to find. But, of course, Cynthia can't make it that easy for us, so she cuts the power to the entire already dark facility, leading us to head straight to the basement to fix the fuse. On the way, we have a small scrap with the now spawning in Taken, one of which is the projectile throwing Taken. Super annoying to fight and extra annoying to get the trophy that is linked to them. You see, whenever you get close to these guys, they zip away at super speed, and we need to interrupt that using a flashlight boost. But once again, the timing on this is just super precise, and we have less room for error here, as our flashlight batteries are in very limited supply, meaning that I highly suggest saving beforehand and reloading immediately after earning this one, which is what I did, first popping the Stop the Monster trophy and then reloading to head to the basement. We get the power back on and the record playing without too much issue and head into the overlap after Tor and Cynthia. Here is once again another winding, looping and confusing mess. During my navigation through these parts, I found my next trophy, as for simply finding the bolt cutters, we earn Cut Short. This maze is then topped off with what is probably the hardest boss in the game. Cynthia is no slouch. She unleashes homing attacks and devastating tidal waves, and when she doesn't feel like staying back and spamming, she gets up close and personal and starts throwing hands. Now apologies to Jake Paul here for taking down his next boxing match opponent and earning my next trophy, Girl in Love. We emerge back out of the overlap with a now back to normal Tor, ending the chapter and earning the Old Gods. With another overlap cleared, we go collectible hunting again and manage to bag our next trophy, as for stunning an enemy with a newly found flashbang, I earn Stunning Vistas. We pop another trophy, as for finding our last nursery rhyme connected doll, we earn I'll Find You, and then follow it up with solving the last of the nursery rhyme puzzles, earning Shift in Reality. We head back into town and over to the police station to talk to Wake, only to find that he's been attacked by the Taken. We find Estevez injured and help her out by clearing out some of the Taken and agreeing to get the power back on. Before that though, we grab our final weapon for Saga, the pump action shotgun, earning the Stop Right There trophy. Estevez did also mention that they found Casey out in the woods, injured, and we do find him again down in the morgue when trying to fix the power, very much alive but injured. We also find our last cult stash and next trophy, hidden by the trees. With the power back on, we head into the cells to find Yelmo and Yakko, the now confirmed cult leaders. They rant about how we have no idea what we are doing and that they need to be let out to stop Wake. And speaking of Wake, he's awkwardly in the cell next to them. We scold him for writing our daughter into the story and are about to hand over the clicker to fix all of this when it's revealed that this isn't Wake at all, it was Scratch, who upon revealing himself, kills Yakko and starts to attack us. We have to head outside and use the FBC's high-tech equipment to fight in this one. It's all about stunning Scratch with enough damage and then activating a gen to turn the lights on. With the lights on, Scratch flees, leading us to question what we can possibly do next, and ending the chapter there, earning the trophy Scene Double. Before planning our next move, I make a very important detour to go and visit the Mayor of Watery, Mayor Seta, and for petting this good boy, we earn the nice things in life, and also receive our final charm, earning Rustic Charm. Back at the station, we speak to Elmo, who tells us all about the cult. Turns out that they've been the good guys all along. They created the horror story of the cult to keep people away from the lake, knowing how special it is. The ritualistic murders they commit are all on any Taken that emerges from the lake, meaning that they've been saving the citizens rather than harming them, and the reason that they wanted Wake dead is to stop him from writing anymore and adding to any more horror to this town. Speaking with Casey and Estevez, we talk about our options. Wake is the only one that can use the clicker to stop this story, but he is still trapped in the dark place, meaning we need one hell of a show to get him out. We have the idea of getting the old rock band back together and having Thor and Odin's rock ballad break him out. So we make a few calls and head on over to Cauldron Lake, where we have one hell of a standoff with the Taken whilst Thor and Odin rock out. This is probably the hardest part of the game for me. You have limited supplies, dozens of Taken to fight, and no time to heal between any hits you may take, and trust, you will be hit. After a few attempts, we do survive the concert and flick the switch to summon Wake, but it doesn't seem to have worked. This is where we flip back to Wake to finish his side of the story, and where we also weirdly pop our next trophy, Yippee-Ki-Yay, for finding the double-barreled shotgun that we picked up with Wake back when the lodge was attacked. Back with Wake means back to the loop, starting with another interview in the studio with Mr. Door. This time, however, it's all done in a very cool, very fun musical that I'm sure you've all heard about, during which I find our trusty flare gun, earning our next trophy, Lights Shining. And for making it through the whole musical chapter, we earn all his life. Outside, we again get a call. This time the caller says that we need to meet up, and has left us his room key to the hotel that he's staying in. We eventually make it there after solving a bunch of looping light puzzles, but before going in, I head round to the bar to find our last weapon of the game and earn all accounted for. Inside we find our mystery caller is Thomas Zane himself, still alive and a little less sane from his years in the dark place. He reveals that he and Alan had been working on the manuscript for Return so they can finally leave this place. It was meant to be a mix of Alan's writing and Zane's filmmaking. Alan doesn't care about the writing for now though, as we need to find another murder site to continue the loop to get back to our apartment to check in on Alice. A site that happens to luckily be in this hotel. Zane, though, soon gets spooked and leaves us to investigate the hotel on our own. We once again run around listening to echoes from Casey, investigating the case to unlock plot points that will change areas in the hotel until we finally reach the murder site. The murder victim this time is shown to be Cynthia Weaver, completing this chapter and earning us in a fancy hotel. Finding the site means that we get to visit our apartment again to get more information about Alice and Scratch's hauntings. We finish the loop by finding ourselves back in the writer's room, confirming that Wake wrote Return. Worrying that it was actually Scratch that wrote it, however, we begin making lots of edits before being ambushed by Scratch, who shoots us clearly in the head, ending the chapter and popping Told and Retold. We begin the loop again, starting with the Mr. Door interview. This time though, we both stop pretending. We know that there's something more to Door, and he is happy to drop the pleasantries here. It seems that he is angry with us because we have wrote someone important in his life into the story, heavily hinting that this is Saga's father. Things stop at the threat however, and Door leaves us, pretty much ending the short and sweet chapter there and popping behind the masks. We head back to confront Zane, who we now suspect was working with Scratch in the Return script. Held at gunpoint, he all but confirms this. He says that he needed Scratch because Alan had stopped writing and all but given up on escaping from this place. He reveals that Scratch betrayed him though, by leaving into the real world without him. Just as we are about to feel sorry for him, he tries to change the scene on us, forcing us to shoot him. We press on and on to our next murder site, Zane's local movie theatre. Here we do more of the same, follow Casey's echoes, which leads us to change scenes with different plot elements until we have our murder site. During all of this, we manage to find our final Alan tape and earn the Trial of the Writer trophy. This time, the murder victims are the two deputies, and after finding them, we complete the chapter and pop the Cult of the Word. We head back to the apartment, but this time find it locked. A phone starts ringing, but this time instead of Zane, it's us. Our future self apologises for what is going to happen, but tells us that we need to put a few of Alice's photos we took into a statue this time to continue the loop. We do just that and are allowed to now enter our apartment, just to find it abandoned. Assuming Alice has moved, we move through this loop to find one final video from her, explaining that after all these years of torment, it's become too much to bear, and that sadly the only answer that she had left was to end things. Enraged, we find ourselves at the end of the loop again, inside the writer's room, where we shoot and kill the Alan writing, thinking that it's Scratch. At that moment, we realise that there was no Scratch at all, just us, stuck in a loop, constantly fighting different versions of Alan that have been in different loops and constantly checking in on Alice, leading to her torment. This ends the chapter and Pops his way out. Now we switch back over to Saga, who pieces together that the ritual did help Alan escape, but it led to him popping up on the beach back at the beginning of the game and not now. She also figures out that Scratch never existed, it was just Wake all along, but with the dark presence inside him, using his torment to possess him when it needed to. And speaking of the devil himself, the possessed Wake finally turns up for the clicker once more, leading to another boss fight with him where we have to stun and prep more gens to activate and lock Alan in a containment unit. And it works, freeing Alan but breaking the containment unit, leading the dark presence to move on to Casey, who takes the clicker, throws Saga into an overlap in the water and escapes. Casey then uses the clicker to enact his plan on Brightfall, ending the chapter there and popping the Filled with Rage trophy for the fight with Scratch and the Rock and Roll Baby for finishing the chapter. Tor and Odin go into the water after Saga, so we leave that to them as we gear up and head into town after Casey. All to find it pretty idyllic looking, not gonna lie, this is the nicest I've seen Brightfalls all game. We detour into the diner to watch our final Elmo and Yakoldad pop in the Koskela Brothers trophy. We head through the town looking for a copy of the completed book so we can start to make our edits. As we get hold of the copy, however, the zombified, crazed villagers turn on us and give chase. We escape and head to the writer's room. The trouble is, we don't know how we can finish this. Following the rules of the narrative in the book, it begs for a sacrifice, and the bigger the save, the bigger the sacrifice. We end the chapter there popping the final Deerfest trophy, and then swap back over to Saga, who has been locked inside a corrupted version of her mind place. We fight all of our fears and self-doubts here to break on free and into the streets of the dark place. We hear a payphone ringing and answer it to an unknown woman who informs us that we need to get the pics that Alan left in the statue in his last loop. We also run into Breaker here, who has been wandering the dark place for quite some time now, on the trail of Dor, who he suspects did this to him. He gives us a manuscript that explains that Dor manages to have some sort of control over where he goes in the dark place. Now we can't copy this power, but we now know which door will lead us to the statue we need, so we head there. And sure enough, it works. We get our hands on Alice's pics, and also somehow the clicker is also with the photos. We answer another phone call to the mysterious woman who tells us that Alan can't finish the story without us. We head into the mind place to speak with him, where he explains how hard this ending is, and about how it needs to follow the pre-existing writing, and how it needs to follow a horror story template as well. We agree that one of us, being both the heroes of this story, need to be the one to make the sacrifice. Alan volunteers himself, but he still needs the clicker. So we head back to the place we entered in from, ending the chapter there and popping end of the road. We then find ourselves with Alan in the writer's room. He has completed the manuscript just as Casey makes it to us. We use the clicker to expel the dark presence, which jumps straight back into Alan, who we then promptly shoot in the head, sacrificing him and bringing this story to an end, popping both the Story Come True trophy and the plat. And after a couple of Marvel post-credit stingers, one of which revealing that Alice is alive and in the dark place, having faked her death to help Alan move through his loops, and the next revealing that Alan is also alive, babbling about how it ain't a loop that they are trapped in, but a spiral, we are now done with Alan Wake 2. And I have to say that this is another amazing piece of work by Remedy. Now, don't get me wrong, these games have certain mechanics and decisions that I really do not like, but they are all part of the company's vision, and I respect that massively. This game feels like an amalgamation of all their previous works, all put into one. The live action sequences from Quantum Break, the trippy, looping and ever-changing environments from Control, and the Alan Wakeness from Alan Wake 1. I would love to get into all the praises and dislikes I have about this game, but I feel like this video is already going to be quite a long one, so let's talk about it in the comments. Have you played this game, or any of Remedy's other titles? How do you find them? Whilst I'm on the topic of that actually, go and check out my video on playing Alan Wake 1. And please do like and subscribe so you can help with all the YouTube algorithm stuff and so you can keep up with each new video. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.